All right, let's talk about a couple things on this one. So first of all, it says show that the points form the vertices of an isosceles triangle. So this time it told you ahead of time it was an isosceles triangle. You just had to verify if you gave the first two sides and you saw they were the same, you got it. That was enough. On your quiz, it's going to say find the lengths of all three sides and then classify it. So it's not specifically going to classify it as isosceles, equilateral, right, or none. So you're going to find the lengths of all three sides, okay? And then you're going to have to check, is it isosceles and equilateral? Pretty obvious. But in this case, this triangle is actually isosceles and also right. Some of you caught it, okay? But if I took those two side lengths, the root 29 and root 29, I squared them both, added them together, they get 58. So it is not just isosceles, it is also a right triangle, which can happen, okay? So it could be, it can't be equilateral and right, because an equilateral has all 60 degrees, but it can be isosceles and right. Second one, so a good chunk of you got it all the way right. Like I put a little sticker if it's all the way right. A good chunk of you got it, so good job, okay? A couple mistakes along the way. One, when we're finding the center, I saw a couple people subtracting x1 and x2 instead of adding them. When we're finding the midpoint, we add. When we find the distance, we subtract, so be careful there, okay? Unfortunately, if you get the center wrong, then it continues to get everything else wrong. So when I grade, I do something called a carry-through error. So let's say this is on your quiz or test, and the first part you get wrong. You get that center wrong. Instead of losing all the points along the way, you lose the points from the center. Like I break your point values down. So you lose the point from the center part, but you wouldn't also then lose the points from the latter part, which is the equation at the end. Some of you didn't make it all the way to the equation. If I could teach you nothing else in this class, other than to one, be a good human, two, it would be read instructions. Make sure that you see what it's asking you for. I think it will pop up, yeah. And it's saying find the equation of the circle. So you got to go all the way to the end. A couple other things that I noticed is some of you left this 5 as the square root of 5. R is squared, so it's got to be just 5. And some of you wrote it as the square root of 5 squared, which technically is right, but not simplified. So you would lose points for not simplifying there. Be really careful. And then one or two of you forgot the squareds on the parentheses. Make sure they're there. You don't want to lose points on silly things like that. Okay, questions on the warm-up or on homework from yesterday? Okay, great. We're going to jump into C2. So we're going to do C2 between today and tomorrow. That homework assignment will be due on Monday, okay? Tomorrow is due your syllabus and your getting to know you. So make sure you get those submitted by tomorrow morning. Okay, so C2 is graphs of equations. Another thing that is we should already know this stuff, but a review, because if we can't do this stuff, then we can't move forward. Okay, so in this section, we're going to literally start with how do I identify a point is on a graph? Something easy like that. How do I know a point's on a graph? Because when I plug that point in, it works in my x and my y. So if I had an equation, no matter what that equation is, it could be a line, a circle, a parabola, a graph of something we can't even identify. If it gives you a coordinate point and it asks you if that point is on the graph, then you simply plug it in and you see if you end up with a balanced equation. So that would look something like this. Determine whether the given points are on the graph of the equation. So there are two sets of points there. We're going to take them and plug them in one at a time. First, this is my x and y, and then the second one would be my new x and y. And I'm going to plug them in. So 0 squared plus 0 times negative 2 plus negative 2 squared equals 4. And yesterday we talked about it, but as a reminder, when we plug in parentheses, because that negative 2 squared becomes a 4. If the parentheses were on it, it would be negative 4. So this is 0 plus 4, and 4 equals 4. So yes, this one is on the graph of the equation. Second point, plug it in. 1 squared plus 1 times negative 2 plus negative 2 squared equals 4. 1 minus 2 plus 4 equals 4. And I end up with 3 equals 4. Is that true? No. So this one is not on my graph. Okay. How do we graph? So eventually throughout the year, we're going to learn how to graph a lot of different things. Lines, parabolas, circles, ellipses, hyperbolas, functions of higher degree, rational functions, like all that stuff we're going to review this year. But what happens if what you have in equation form, you have no idea what it looks like, right? So we can always fall back to literally making a t-chart and plotting some points. So let's say this is a standardized test and it has some weird funky equation there and you don't know what it looks like. You can always make a t-chart, okay? Eventually we're going to narrow these down to lines and circles and we won't have to do t-charts, but this is always your fallback, okay? So we're going to rewrite the equation so that one of the variables is isolated. Usually it is the y that is isolated, but sometimes when we get to like parabolas that are turned sideways, okay, we isolate the x. Make the table of values, plot the points in rectangular coordinates, and then connect the points with a smooth curve or line. So we go back to an A. We're plotting what? What is y equals negative 3x plus 1? What kind of graph is that? A line. My firefighter husband nicely sent me a TikTok yesterday that said, another day went by when I didn't use y equals mx plus b. Smart Alec. Okay. You are going to use it today. So we're going to pretend we don't know this is a line and just plug points in. So negative 3 times negative 1 plus 1 is 3 plus 1, which is 4. And negative 3 times 0 plus 1 is 0 plus 1, which is 1. And negative 3 times 1 plus 1, negative 3 plus 1, negative 2. And negative 3 times 2 plus 1, negative 6 plus 1, negative 5. That bottom row is just saying, give me the coordinate point that these two form together. Then we plot those points, negative 1, 4, 0, 1, 1, negative 2, 2, negative 5, and we connect them. And we know this to be a line, so we can put the arrows on them if we didn't know. They don't need to be there. Same process for B. This time I've got an x squared, so what do you expect this graph to look like? Big. Okay, your points are going to be big. What shape will the graph take on? It's a parabola, okay? Which we, like in chapter 2, spend more time with parabolas than you ever thought you ever wanted to know, okay? But for now, we're going to take these points and we're going to plot them, and we're going to graph what's given to us. So negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 is 1 minus 2, negative 1. And 0 squared plus 2 times 0 is 0. And 1 squared plus 2 times 1 is 1 plus 2, 3. And 2 squared plus 2 times 2, 4 plus 4, which is 8. Put them again together to make your coordinate points. Negative 1, 0, 0, 1, 3, 2, 7, 8. So we said this should be a parabola. I didn't get a U shape. I got like half of a U shape. At this point, because we're restricting your T-chart, it's totally fine to connect these and leave it alone. When we get to, it keeps flashing, but it'll come back on. When we get to quadratics, we will learn that we need to find a vertex, an intercepts, or something else to make this the U. But for right now, because your T-chart is restricted, your graph can literally start with the first one and end with the last one. We don't need to worry about making sure that it's a parabola. Everybody still good? Okay. Here's where we need our graphing utilities. So if you want to grab the graphing calculator, if you brought it with you. If you don't, you can choose between Desmos or the free graphing calculator. Desmos is a great tool to learn, especially because you are given it on your standardized, the SAT. So we will use Desmos like sporadically so that at least you guys can get comfortable with it. The week before the PSAT, we'll focus in on some of like the harder, trickier questions. We'll go over some of those. But if you've never, how many of you know you're like at level 1 on Desmos, like you just haven't played with it a lot or not at all? Okay, all right. It's our goal to get comfortable with it, right? It's a huge tool when it comes to a standardized test. Okay, so let me All right, one thing I feel like nobody ever teaches you is like if you're in the graphing component, how do you get back to like the home screen? I've seen so many people just power off their calculator and turn it back on again. If you hit second quit, it takes you back to your original screen, okay? So I'm going to go into the y equals. There's something already there, so I'm going to clear it out, okay? So y equals is at the top. I'm going to type in that whole formula, okay? The 1 over 30, there's like 4 different ways to type this in. You could literally do 1 dash 30, and then like 1 slash 30, like divided by, okay? A lot of you have a little shortcut over your x, t, theta, n button that looks like a little stacked green box. So you hit alpha and that little stacked green box, and it will give you the fraction. If you don't see that stacked green box, try hitting alpha and that button, because some have it even though it doesn't show it. And then if you don't have it, like this is, so I used a different one for today, but my personal one doesn't have it, then you hit alpha y equals and you hit enter on number 1. So alpha y equals also gets you to that little stacked one. So 1 over 30. 1 over 30 is not bad, but when we get to rational functions and you get something like x squared plus 2x minus 1 divided by x squared, you want to be able to stack your fraction. Okay, then I'm going to open my parentheses. Well, I'm going to put the x because there's an x there. I'm going to open my parentheses, and the x is the variable button that's right next to the green button. Put the x again. Caret to the 4th power. Arrow over minus 10x to the 2nd power. Arrow over to get out of the exponent plus 39. The last parentheses you don't need on there. You could put it, but it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to hit graph. And I'm here, okay? Does everybody, can everybody get to that place? Anybody need help? Because like today's the day we get to know our calculators for the first time. If you need help, you want to speak up. Okay. So what can we look at this graph and find, okay? We can find things like zeros or where it crosses through your x-axis, which would also be an x-intercept. We can find y-intercept. We can find a specific point, okay? We could find max, we could find min, we can find all that stuff, which eventually we'll do a little bit of max and min. But one way to find these points is to hit trace. Trace will pop up like a little spider looking thing, and you can move that spider left and right to find specific points. If it's a nice round whole number, it will stop right on it. So this graph crosses right through 0, 0. But if I want to find something specific, let's say I want to find what happens when I plug in 1 for x, then I can go second, trace, and I get to this calculate menu. And this is a super important menu. It has value 0, min, max, intercept. We use all those things. Value is where I can say what value would I get out of this equation if I were to plug this value in for x. So if I plug 5 in for x, it's going to take me to the point where 5 is, and notice how big it is. It's 69. It's all the way off the screen, okay? So how is this helpful? One, obviously, if I'm graphing and it wants to know a specific point, it's helpful. How is this also helpful if you are using a standardized test and it has this weird equation and it says what happens when x is 2? Then you could literally type it into your graphing calculator or Desmos and say, what is the value when x is 2? Which is the same thing as solving your equation, okay? I'm going to go back to that same menu, second, trace, and I'm going to go to 0. A 0 is the same thing as your x-intercept. It says left bound, so it wants me to give it a range of which I want to pick the 0 from. Sometimes these graphs cross through our x-axis more than once, and that means it has more than one 0, so it wants you to find a specific 0. So it's asking you left bound. So the little spider, which I left off where x was 5, so it's all the way off my screen, has to go to the left of where it crosses through the x-axis. So I'm just going left of it. I know it's left because my y is negative. So I'm underneath the x-axis, and I hit enter. And then it says what's right bound. So I arrow to the right to go past where it crosses the x-axis, and I hit enter. And then it says guess, question mark. Yes, I'm ready for you to guess. I hit enter, and it's going to bring you to the point where it crosses the x-axis. So this is a 0. This is an x-intercept. This is also a solution to your equation. So if I graphed something and it said, where are your solutions? I could graph it and find everywhere it crosses the x-axis, and that is the answer to that equation. Does that make sense? Okay. We're going to come back and do a lot of stuff with your graphing utility. The other thing I want to show you before we get anywhere else is your zoom. So I can zoom in and out on a graph by hitting zoom and then zoom in, and then I have to hit enter again. And it will zoom in on the graph, okay? But I can also restrict my window, which means how far left do I want it to go, how far right, how far down, and how far up, by just going to window. So your standard window is -10 for your X-min, +10 for your X-max, -10 for your Y-min, +10 for your Y-max. And I hit enter and it takes me back to that square that I had originally. If I want to zoom out or zoom in, I can also go to the window and change that. So let's just say I want it to show a little bit higher on my screen. I could literally just say Y-max is 70, and all it did was stretch the top part of my graph. So I can change anything I want as far as max-min goes, left, right, top, bottom. Questions on any of that stuff? Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing. Second graph takes you to the table. So this will also show you what's the value of y when x is 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, whatever. It's only going to show you whole numbers on this view. If you want to change the way it goes, like if you wanted to go by 0.1s, I'm not going to mess with it today, but you hit this little plus. Like some of you are really good at like messing around with your calculators and finding what they do. That's one of the things that it could do. Okay. There are going to be times in homework it says, use a graphing utility to graph this equation and then answer questions based on it. When the homework says that, I expect to see a picture of what your calculator showed you in your homework. Why? Because what happens when we go over the homework and you have no idea why you got it wrong? Because you don't know what your calculator looked like that day. If it just says, use a graphing utility to check your answers, I don't need to see pictures. That's for you to check your answer. But if the question literally says use a graphing utility to the graph and then answer questions based on it, I need to see a photo. It could be a screenshot of Desmo's, the free graphing calculator, or your actual calculator, but you need to include the picture of the graph in it. Understood? Okay.